Welcome to the second part of the acid-base balance interpretation. Now, if you ever feel confused while reading an ABG, come back to these 3 steps because this is exactly how the clinicians think. They do not interpret the ABGs randomly or by memorizing the isolated values. Instead, they follow a system-wise logical approach. Once you practice this method a few times, the ABG interpretation becomes much easier and much more systematic. So imagine you are given an ABG report in the ward. So what should your brain first think about? The first step is always to check the pH. Never jump directly to PaCO2 or bicarbonate. Why? Because pH immediately tells you the direction of the disturbance, whether is it acidic or alkaline. But remember, at this stage, you still do not know whether the disorder is respiratory or metabolic. You only know whether the problem is acid or alkali. Once you identify the direction of the pH change, the next step is to identify the primary disorder. As you already know, if the pH is less than 7.35, it is acidemia, that is more acid is the problem. And if the pH is more than 7.45, it is alkalemia, more base is the problem. Now you have decided whether it is acidic or alkaline. Now we have to identify the primary disorder, that is the second step. How do you do that? Look at the parameter that changed in the direction of the pH. What do you mean by that? Suppose if the pH is low, if the pH is low and the PaCO2 is high, then that is the excess CO2 is causing the acidity. Since CO2 behaves like an acid, this is called as respiratory acidosis, and it is usually caused by hypoventilation. The common examples where this hypoventilation is seen is COPD, respiratory depression, and airway obstruction. On the other hand, if the pH is high and the PaCO2 is low, here there is excessive CO2 loss is occurring. This leads to respiratory alkalosis. This is usually happening because of hyperventilation. And this hyperventilation common causes can be anxiety, then panic attacks, or high altitude. So these 3 are the causes that are causing the respiratory alkalosis. Now the next condition where the pH is low and then the bicarbonate is also low. That means the bicarbonate deficiency is the problem. This is called as metabolic acidosis. The common examples include diarrhea, diabetic ketoacidosis, and renal failure. The next situation is here if the pH is high and then even the bicarbonate concentration is also high. The problem here is excess bicarbonate. This will cause as metabolic alkalosis. The common causes include vomiting, antacids excess, and diuretics use. Diuretics are a class of drugs. So all these will cause metabolic alkalosis. Now you have identified all the 3 primary disorders that are causing the acid-base imbalance. Now the next step will be assessing the compensation. Now when you are assessing the compensation, you have to remember 2 checkpoints. That is what you have to check. The first is the other parameter moving in the expected direction? For example, in metabolic acidosis, the lungs should compensate by lowering the PaCO2 through hyperventilation. So you should ask yourself, is the PaCO2 actually decreasing? If yes, the compensation is occurring. The second thing is the compensation change appropriate according to the physiological rules? If the compensation is too little or too much or moving in the opposite direction, then you should suspect a mixed acid-base disorder. So to summarize, till now we have completed 3 steps. The first one is the checking the pH. Second one is the identifying the primary disorder. And the third one is to check whether the compensation is happening or not. Now the fourth step is to determine the compensation type and the stage of compensation. After identifying the primary disorder and checking whether the compensation is occurring, the next question becomes what stage of compensation is the patient in. This is clinically very important because it tells us how long the disorder has been present, whether the body has started adapting, and whether the another disorder might also be present. First, let's discuss about the uncompensated disorders. What do you mean by that? In an uncompensated disorder, the pH is abnormal. and only one parameter is abnormal while the other parameter remains normal. What do you mean by that? For example, if the pH is low, bicarbonate is also low, but the other parameter means PaCO2, that is normal here. pH is abnormal by being low. One parameter out of bicarbonate and PaCO2 is abnormal. Bicarbonate is decreased and the other parameter is normal. If this is the situation of the patient, the body has not yet responded adequately, and this is usually seen in the early or acute stages of the disease, and it is called as uncompensated stage. As you know, if the pH is decreased, bicarbonate is also decreased, it is metabolic acidosis. So finally we can say it is an uncompensated metabolic acidosis. Next comes the partially compensated disorders. Here, the pH is abnormal and both PaCO2 and HCO3 are abnormal. This means the body has started compensating, but the pH has not yet returned to normal. Next, coming to the fully compensated disorders. In the fully compensated disorders, the pH has returned to normal, but PaCO2 and HCO3 minus are still an abnormal range. This means the body has successfully restored the pH towards the normal, even though the original disorder still exists. Many students get confused at this point and ask, if the pH is normal, how do we know which disorder was primary? The answer is to look at the pH. For example, a pH of 7.36 is technically normal, but it leans towards acidity because the range is 7.35 to 7.45 and 7.36 is nearer to the acidic value of 7.35. Whereas a pH of 7.44, it is normal, but it leans towards the alkalinity. This subtle leaning helps to identify the original direction of the disorder. Now coming to the fourth category, that is the mixed acid base disorders. This is extremely important because mixed disorders occur when more than one primary acid base disorder is simultaneously present. This is not compensation. Examples include like metabolic acidosis with respiratory alkalosis or respiratory acidosis with metabolic alkalosis. We suspect mixed disorders when the compensation is excessive, when the compensation is beyond the expected range or in the opposite direction. This is why expected compensation rules are so important in the clinical interpretation. Once we have understood the stage of the compensation, we have to check for the anion gap. That is the fifth step. That is the fifth step here. Especially we have to check if it is metabolic acidosis. At this point, you have to ask what type of metabolic acidosis is this. That is where the anion gap becomes extremely useful. The anion gap estimates the unmeasured anions in the blood, essentially acids that are not routinely measured in the standard laboratory test. The formula, as you can see here, it is sodium minus sum of chloride and bicarbonate ions. A normal anion gap is 8 to 12 milliequivalents per liter, and it is seen in hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis. It is called hyperchloremic because the loss of bicarbonate is balanced by increase in the chloride. The common examples: diarrhea and renal tubular acidosis. In contrast, a high anion gap, that is more than 12 milliequivalents per liter, indicates accumulation of unmeasured acids. The classic causes are remembered using the mnemonic mud piles, including methanol poisoning, uremia, diabetic ketoacidosis, lactic acidosis, and others. Now, another clinically important concept that is related to ABG balance is the albumin correction. Adjusted albumin correction. The albumin contributes significantly to the anion gap. So in low albumin states such as liver diseases, malnutrition, or nephrotic syndrome, the measured anion gap may appear falsely low. In such situations, we often calculate a corrected anion gap, especially in critically ill ICU patients. Finally, coming to the sixth step, that is clinical correlation. The ABG interpretation without clinical context can be dangerous. Never treat numbers alone. Always treat the patient. Whenever you see an ABG abnormality, ask yourself, why is this happening? Is it due to COPD or pneumonia or diabetic ketoacidosis or renal failure or vomiting, sepsis, whatever the causes? What is the cause? ABG interpretation must always connect with the underlying pathology. In addition, the ABGs are not just about the acid-base balance. You must also assess the oxygenation by using PaO2 values or oxygen saturation, and sometimes even the alveolar arterial gradient. The oxygenation problems may be immediately life-threatening. You must also correlate the ABG with the patient's symptoms, medical history, Then medications and comorbidities. For example, a COPD patient may normally have chronically elevated CO2 levels. So numbers alone are meaningless without proper context. So the final takeaway from these slides is that the last three steps transform the ABG interpretation from merely reading numbers into true clinical reasoning. That is, at what stage of compensation the patient is present, checking the anion gap, checking for the albumin levels, adjusted albumin value calculation, and finally correlating it with the clinical symptoms. So this is how we interpret the ABG report using the 6-step approach.